And, well, this is this I this, so you guys know who I am. Okay, I was gonna make this video earlier, but due to some personal problems, power going out at my mom and my brother's house, and for about 3 or 4 hours, and then having to move half their food to my refrigerator because the power over here is on. And the power finally came on, but it was like 7 or 6 hours later, so the food would have spoiled if we didn't move it. Of course, helping my brother get his comic books, which is about 4 or 5 towns over, about close to 20 miles, maybe 10. I don't know. I wasn't counting. I didn't care. I was too damn tired to even give a flying fuck by the time we got home. So, Apple's new event came in today, and Nintendo's new event will happen tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. We'll finally get a price and release date for the Wii U tomorrow. But this is about Apple, not about Nintendo. Knock on wood. What did I think about it overall? I was genuinely impressed. Apple did some good things and favorably fixed certain areas that they should have fixed. They have done some pretty bizarre areas though with this, but in a whole, I'm still impressed with what Apple did. And let me explain. First of all, the new iPhone 5. We all knew this was coming. We've seen how some of the leaked videos and photos, so pretty much there was nothing new there. But I liked how they made the screen, bigger, but not like wider like they did with the Android phones, because they're starting to make those some of those Android phones. I mean, I have nothing wrong with Android, but they're making them so bigger that they might as well just be tablets. I mean, I remember watching D Road Trip when he was making fun of the iPad, saying that it'll be this gigantic cell phone, and well, I guess here's the funny thing. I guess the people who are making these Android phones must have heard D Road Trip and decided to turn these tablets into phones now. I mean, pretty soon people are like, no, no, that screen's not big enough. We need bigger. I mean, how big are you going to get it? You mean what? Your laptop? Turn that into a computer? Have a giant keyboard up to your head making phone calls? Oh, no, wait. How about your television set? You got to pick that up and put that to your ear. Just holding up that 87-inch television set into your neck snaps. I find the whole idea of of a bigger screen preposterous at best and kind of idiotic. And the whole conversation, because they all keep complaining that everything's too small. And of course, when I hear these complaints, all I hear is this: it's Apple. I don't care what they're making. They cured cancer? Fuck it. It's still Apple. It's shit. Fuck Apple. Fuck Apple. And that's what I hear. I mean, if Apple was to cure cancer and hell, even figure out how to cure all the brain diseases, I would still hear these people say, fuck Apple. Fuck Apple. It says Apple. Don't you see? It says Apple. It's evil. Now, as far as the tech show went, I was genuinely impressed. The somewhat larger screen. Basically, all they did was just made an extra line of screen that would hold three more apps on it, and they didn't make it wider. They just made it longer, which is good. I mean, I'm fine with it. Honestly, I didn't care about that. It just means that I can see three more apps on my selection screen. Whoop de doo. They put in a faster processor, as expected, and impressive all at the same time, even though some people are like, I didn't find it impressive. It said Apple on there. If they put something faster in there, it still says Apple on it. Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I'm happy with the upgrades. And, of course, they put three mics on there, one at the bottom, one at the top. I mean, two at the top, front and back, which is good. And then they got rid of their 3-pin connector and replaced it with a new lightning connector, which we all knew was coming. Now, here's the thing that most of you don't understand. This the rumor of them getting rid of the 30-bit connector was there since the last iPhone upgrade, on all the way even to the new iPad. that new iPad was supposed to get this new connector, but for some reason didn't. Of course, the newer iPad will be definitely getting it, and at some point the iPod Shuffle will. And I'm actually happy Nintendo did it because, well, it's about time for them to go a different direction with their connecting ports. Of course, it was about time for them to do this all the way back with the iPhone 4, but at least they finally got around to it. And there will be 4G, but of course, everybody hates 4G now because it's got Apple on there, or at least the Apple haters will just hate it because of that. These standard updates were going to come one way or another, except maybe the bigger screen. To tell you the truth, I didn't really see it coming, but then again, I didn't really care. But they were going to come either way, and I'm happy with the upgrades because I like it when they at least upgrade the hardware to be more with intact with what's going on with the other current hardware. Of course, everybody else is all saying, I hate these hardware updates. Why? Because they say Apple on it. That's wrong. Yeah, those people can go kiss my ass. And then you got the iPod Shuffle. And the iPod Shuffle is. I mean, not the iPod Shuffle, I mean the iPod Nano. Yeah, the iPod Nano. Oh, most of you don't know the circus that comes with that thing. Now, I was fine with the last iPod Nano upgrade. I didn't care. In fact, I kind of like the last iPod Nano because the whole thing about the iPod Nano is that it's supposed to be called Nano, and the Nano is supposed to mean small. But no, they want it larger and taller. They basically are trying to turn it into what the iPod Touch is. Just they want to get rid of the Touch name and put the Nano name in there. And this is from a whole. And see, the thing is, you don't understand. There's been this sort of dance around with between Apple and the iPod Nano fans. Basically, Apple would make a change to the iPod Nano to make them smaller so they would fit with the name Nano, and then the iPod Nano fans would complain saying they wanted to be more like the iPod Touch. Or, they want it to be bigger and better and bigger. And as far as I'm concerned, the iPod Nano fans can go fuck off. Because, they even had a camera on one of them and it was badly placed, and they're still bitching that thing was taken off. Thankfully, Apple didn't fold to the iPod Nano fan club again and put a camera on it. Thank God. But instead, what they did was a compromise. They made the screen, bigger. All they did was just raise the screen again. It's basically the same thing as the iPod Nano, just with a bigger screen to it, a volume button, and Bluetooth and video playback. But that's about it. And of course, you drop photos in there, even though it has no camera, but it never needed a fucking camera. Next thing we know, the iPod Nano fans are going to end up complaining. I want a FaceTime camera and I want a rear camera with an LED light. Come on, Apple, give it to me. Yeah, fuck off. You got a bigger screen and you got a home button and it looks more like the fucking iPod Touch, just smaller. That's it. Now going to the iPod Touch. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I like the iPod Touch. I like the new iPod Touch. I like the screen, just like on the iPhone. And it's about the same size. It's got the same exact camera on the iPhone. And this time it'll have an LED light. About fucking time, Apple. It'll have the same camera, FaceTime camera, up front. The only thing that'll be missing is phone capabilities. Duh. But the iPod Touch is basically for people who want the iPod Touch but really can't afford any of the phone companies that come with iPhones. So they can go get their iPod Touch and, mess around with it just like it's an iPhone, just with only Wi Fi. And it makes a nice competitor against the Nintendo 3DS. It really does. When they upgrade it and actually put some meat to the damn thing, which they finally did. It's got two A5 processors, which is almost about the same speed as what the A6 is that's in the iPhone, so that's a good thing. Basically, it will be basically an iPhone 5, just no phone. The only thing that they added that's a little weird is a bunch of colors on the back, of course, the aluminum back, which will cause heat problems again. Yay. And then they added this little loop around thing around your wrist. The iPod loop. Okay. I mean, it looks no different than the Nintendo Wiimote wristband things. I don't know why it's there. And I know it's like they're trying to get to the teenage girls with it. But no, mostly teenage girls go straight for the iPhone. So, yeah, they really wasted their money on that loop. And as for the color coding, I think it's a little stupid, but altogether, the iPod Touch is still a great device. If anything, just get the gray one or the red one if you want to give your money to charity, which is a good thing. But altogether, this press event brings more hope to brings it makes me more happier with Apple than the last couple of press events. I mean, they had that one press event where they finally updated the Mac Pros after so long on that shit. And now they've updated the iPod Touches, which basically, I know why they did it, is because the 3DSs are pretty much taking over the market on the handhelds, and Nintendo and Apple is losing their handheld markets, and if they don't do anything to pick up, you know, it's going their Apple's going to hurt. And not only this, because the tablets are finally starting to gather up against the iPad. Of course, I haven't seen any real tablets, still be any better than the iPad. But right now, most of the Android tablets and BlackBerry tablets haven't really ranged very well against the iPad. Only like the Kindle Fire. And of course, these updates for the iPhone 5 is more out of desperation because we all know Android is killing Apple in the marketplace right now. I mean, Apple's right now at second. And if they weren't careful or didn't come up with these updates to iPhone 5, they would have ended up dropping to the third place mark, which is not good. Of course, they're still would be better off than what Microsoft is at because they're Microsoft phones are still at 1% of the market and in fact are losing market share. Yeah, 1% and you're losing market share. That's bad, Microsoft. Very, very bad. That's why they ported all their apps, especially their Xbox apps, to iOS now. Funny, huh? And of course, Microsoft slates are a joke. If anything, this will help Apple boosting their sales again and probably get them back somewhat to the first place again. But that time will only tell. As far as I'm concerned, I don't want a giant phone at my ear. I mean, I don't care much for the smartphones, which is why I get an iPod Touch instead of an iPhone. But I mean, like everyone else, I don't need a gigantic fucking screen. I just don't. I just need something to dial and do all this shit with. But I will say this about iOS 6. It's about fucking time they started adding Siri to all the devices. Yeah, that's right. Siri is going to be to the iPad, iPod Touch, and the iPhone. About fucking time. But I've got renewed hope in Apple now, and I am happy with what I've seen. Most people will disagree with me. I don't care. But if I end up seeing replies where people are just screaming that they hated the updates and they are just calling it for what it is, I mean, not comfort, are just saying that they're just bad, and then almost screaming it out to the point where they're saying it's evil because these updates are worthless because they say Apple on it. Apple, that's just wrong. These should say something else like Google or Microsoft, not Apple. No. Fuck off. Seriously. That's all I have to say.